Hello, 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 everybody. How are you? How are you? This is Kenneth Overton, your host here of Black Opera Live, which is the show that is sponsored by Black Opera Productions, the production company that is going to be bringing you the incredible documentary Black Opera towards the end of this year. I am so excited to be here tonight. My guest is, wow, he's just so exciting and is doing so many incredible things. And I cannot wait to share him with you so that you can hear his journey, his story, and learn more about this incredible human being, this incredible artist, Mr. Davone Tines. But before we get to him, just a couple of things. We had to adjust the hour because I'm in New Orleans, and so I'm on Central Time, and so I'm not at home with my own devices and stuff. And I'm in New Orleans at New Orleans Opera, singing the role of Porgy, and it's the first opera that I've done since the shutdown, and it'll be outdoors in the gorgeous Audubon Park at a gigantic pavilion. And so it's all safe. And I'm in on the fourth day of a 7-day mandatory quarantine by the company and by our union, which is AGMA, to keep everybody safe. And then we have more testing. And then we start rehearsals on Thursday. I'm so excited to be with colleagues and friends, Chauncey Packer, Kirsten Piper Brown, Angela Brown, Donovan Singletary, Reginald Smith Jr. I'm just so excited. Cannot wait to get into the rehearsal space and sing. Oh my goodness, so excited. Another event I wanted to tell you about, my dear friend Karen Slack, she's one of the busiest human beings on the planet, okay? But she's doing this incredible piece called Driving While Black. And it's produced by Urban Arias. And I'm going to put up their website so that you can find out about this incredible production, which is going to start streaming on April the 30th. And it stars Karen, but it's composed by Susan Kander with a libretto by the incredible Roberta Gumbel, who's also a phenomenal singer. We were on Broadway together in Baz Luhrmann's La Boheme, and now she's turned her hat into being an incredible librettist. And it's directed and choreographed by a husband and wife team, Dubois and Camry Akin of Akin Brand. And like I said, it's going to stream on April the 30th. And it's a montage of poetic and haunting moments examining the trials and triumphs of Black mothers that they experience as their children come of age in a society plagued by racism and inequality. So go check out urbanarias.org. Get your tickets, support our sister Karen Slack as she does what she does, and that's being a wonderful, incredible artist. Another thing I wanted to tell you about is this project that I'm working on called The Road We Came, and it is being produced by On-Site Opera. And I'll put their website up here now. Ryan McKinney and his lovely, gorgeous wife, Tanya McKinney, are the cinematographers and directors of these three sort of walking tours in New York City that have everything to do with Black history in New York City. And I will be taking you on a musical guide, singing music of Black composers, both opera and spirituals and songs by African-American, art songs by African-American composers, and as well as Broadway tunes by Black composers as well. And there are three separate tours. One is in Lower Manhattan, and then we move to Midtown Manhattan, and then there's a Harlem tour. And there are at least 8 songs per tour with composers like Margaret Bonds and Florence Price and William Grant Still and Roland Carter and James Rosamond Johnson and Harry T. Burleigh and Dave Ragland and Damian Jeter and Duke Ellington. It's just a phenomenal project that I'm really, really looking forward to. So go to osopera.org and check it out. But now, the main event, folks, my guest, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. This bio is incredible. Incredible. He is heralded as one of the most powerful voices of our time. And that was said by the Los Angeles Times, but I'm co-signing. I agree. He is immensely gifted, The American-based baritone Davone Tines has won acclaim and advanced the field of classical music. That was said by the New York Times. He is a path-breaking artist whose work not only encompasses diverse repertoire, but also explores the social issues of today. As a Black, gay, classically trained performer at the intersection of many histories, cultures, and aesthetics, his work blends opera, art song, contemporary classical spirituals, gospel, and songs of protest as a means to tell a deeply personal story and perseverance that connects to all of humanity. His recent and ongoing projects include Mass, which is a 75-minute recital for bass baritone and pianist that explores the liturgical mass woven through Western European, African American, and 21st century traditions, and Vigil, which is a music film presented by Lincoln Center that pays tribute to Breonna Taylor, the EMT and aspiring nurse who was shot and killed by police in her Louisville home and whose tragic death has fueled an international outcry. Performances of Mass, presented by Carnegie Hall, and the Celebrity Series of Boston, among other institutions, are forthcoming after initial postponement due to the shady, nasty, stayed way beyond her welcome COVID-19. Like, she just has to go away. Davone Tines is also the co-creator of The Black Clown, a music theater experience inspired by Langston Hughes' poem of the same name that animates a Black man's resilience against America's legacy of oppression by fusing vaudeville, opera, jazz, and spirituals to bring Hughes' verse to life on stage. The piece was commissioned and premiered by the American Repertory Theater and was presented at Lincoln Center in 2019. As a founding core member of American Modern Opera Company, Davone Tines has been featured in productions all over the world, some by John Adams and Peter Sellers, and Terrence Blanchard and Casey Lemons, Fire Shut Up in My Bones, which had its world premiere at Opera Theater St. Louis, and Girls of the Golden West, which premiered at San Francisco Opera and then remounted for the Dutch National Opera. He is also fabulous on the concert stage and has performed with Maestro Michael Tilson Thomas and Maestro Estepeka and just all over the world. The Orchestra Nationale de France in Stravinsky's Oedipus Rex, the Beethoven Nine, just incredible. He sings everything and all over the place. And he is the winner the 2020 Sphinx Medal of Excellence, recognizing extraordinary classical musicians of color. He also received the 2018 Emerging Artist Award from Lincoln Center of the Performing Arts and is a graduate of the Harvard University and the Juilliard School. Man, I keep amazing company. So without further ado, please give a virtual round of applause and standing ovation to my guest, my friend, my brother, the wonderful Mr. Davone Tines. Hey, brother, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm better for seeing you.
I hope you can hear me. They're outside ripping up the road, so I'll try to speak up.
There's construction outside of my place, too, in New Orleans. It's crazy.
Amen.
Hi, everybody that's in the chat already. It's so great to see you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Patrick McCoy, good to see you. Hey, Gary and Janet. We love to see it. Davone, I'm so glad you're here. And I know that you are so busy, even in these pandemic shady times, out there making art and doing what you do at the highest of levels. So let's go from the beginning. Tell the folks where you grew up and how did music and classical music come into your life?
Right. Start from the very beginning. I grew up in Northern Virginia, out in the country, about an hour and a half southwest of DC. I was raised by my grandparents. And in music, how did it start? I don't know. I talk to my grandparents a lot now, and I record them talking because I find that that's important. And it's always been good to be able to go back and listen. And one time I talked to my grandfather, and he said, when I was in elementary school, maybe fourth grade or so, in a big Virginia snowstorm where you can't go outside for until 4 feet of snow melt, he said you got bored, and then one day you walked over to the piano and plucked out a C. My grandfather's a pianist too, and he directs 2 church choirs in his retirement from the Navy. But he said you plucked out a C, and I think that note got stuck in your head forever. And then after that, you were just kind of obsessed with music. So I actually started with piano lessons when I was in about 5th grade, and then 6th grade I took up the violin. I was just fascinated by that sound. I remember watching like PBS orchestra specials and The Rite of Spring and thinking like, what's that? How does that work? It's crazy. And did that for a while until high school, where I was encouraged to audition for choir. My grandparents encouraged me to do that. And it was fun, I sang in choir, and then there were musicals, and I auditioned for that. And ended up getting the lead a bunch of times. I was Javert in Les Mis, and I was Fred in Petruchio and Kiss Me Kate,
Nice.
Walker in Ragtime. And so it just seemed like something really fun and kind of like a path of least resistance in a way. It's like working hard in school, but like this I could do. And I knew that, I enjoyed doing it. It didn't feel like pressured at that time. Hello. Hey, Cameron Gray. Cameron, yes. Hello. And then it came time for me to go to school after high school. And I thought about going to conservatory. I was pretty set on going to Eastman, but my grandfather had a close friend that went to Harvard. And at that time, they didn't really, my family didn't know if music was a job.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
You had a lot of fun in high school, but now you got to like go punch a clock.
Right.
I went to tour Harvard with this friend, and I actually met their director of choral activities, and we really got along. And then I had done well in high school, so it all added up to the blessing of going to Harvard for my undergrad. And I started there in the music department, but it was very pedagogical, and if you wanted to be a composer or a musicologist, that was the thing. But I realized I wanted to understand a little bit more about like how the world worked. So I went over to the sociology department, and I thought I wanted to be in arts administration because that was a way that I could be engaged in the arts, but that I could punch a clock, as it were. And I knew that sociology would help me understand why society creates and propagates and supports culture, so I could hopefully move that into supporting art making. And actually, out of school, my first jobs were in arts administration. I worked as a production manager for George Mason University Opera Company. I started as their production stage manager, and then worked for an educational nonprofit that did their recruiting for music students, helped kind of start a small painting school out in Virginia that a former George Washington University professor started. So I had a lot of different experiences, here and there from different angles of seeing how it worked. And it was actually, I'm just talking a lot.
No, it's great. It's great.
I was working at George Mason University because, I moved on to being their production manager and kind of produced a season of their student company opera. And, we did all kinds of things, from concerts of arias to a Johnny Skiki that I was, production managing, but also they did a double cast. So I was one of the Johnny Skikis, which is crazy, like sitting in a meeting being like, we need more, props, and then going, yeah, right. Dialect voice. But in sitting in the booth and watching this over and over again, I thought, I could do that. I know how to do that. Yeah. So I was at a crossroads. It was like, I either go to business school and kind of formalize, this administrative work I'd been doing, or I could try for conservatory and see how it goes. And I kind of gave myself the dare of, you can audition for, a couple conservatories, and if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, you apply to business school. And I auditioned for some places, and I got into Juilliard, and I really took that as a sign to pursue it. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got into.
That's amazing. I love that. It's an interesting trajectory, and one of the great things about doing the show is that I hear so many different stories about people's paths to this classical music world, as it were.
Mm.
And yours is one of the more interesting ones. And so now you've gone to Harvard, which is like,
Yeah.
you know, it's
I'm
the
actually
school.
I'm teaching there. Isn't that crazy?
Are you
So
serious?
yeah, so this past semester so my close friend Zach Winokur, who's kind of, I consider him my art husband. You know, we create a lot of things together, especially through
Yeah.
American Modern Opera Company, and we made the Black Clown together along with a friend Michael Schachter. But yeah, we've been teaching this course called How to Be a Tool: Storytelling Across Disciplines, because
Yeah.
we've been through a lot of creative processes together, and wanted to see what it was like to offer those tools of performing arts to students far outside of the performing arts. You know, we purposely wanted students from sociology, from economics, and say, you know, we know theater has a really great toolkit for telling a story, for holding your attention and making you feel something. But the people whose stories need to be heard are these young people who are doing actual work that change our world. You know, we need to hear what economists who are trying to change inequality are doing. We need to hear what sociologists who are trying to we have this one amazing girl who's from Nigeria, and she's created an entire online tour for people to invite people to dispel misconceptions of the African diaspora. So just it's been really a blessing to be able to kind of pass along what I've been learning in the arts to people far outside of it. Anyway.
Amazing. And see, that's one of the things, you know, when people ask me in interviews, one of the questions that I don't like to answer is they'll say, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? It's like, it never ends up being where I would have said, you know, when it actually comes time. And so I'm sure you didn't probably see yourself teaching courses at Harvard at this point in your life.
No, it was just kind of a blessing that came out of this pandemic time, really.
My goodness, that's amazing. And so tell me about your Juilliard experience. You're there, and so you go from one of the most prestigious schools in the world, as in Harvard, and then you go to one of the most prestigious conservatories in the world, that is Juilliard. What were some of the similarities and differences and challenges or things that you were able to make work because of your experience at Harvard?
Right. It was a big transition, you know. I mean, Harvard's a liberal arts school. In that way, it's very open. You know, there's a lot of dialogue with, you know, departments and with instructors to say, here's how I want to focus on something or what I want to think. And the conservatory, you know, you're in a training ground, and there's a very decided way of how you go about things. But similarities, definitely the people, just excellent people. You know, people that from undergrad that I'm still friends with today, and like going to their weddings and seeing their kids and everything. You know, we are still close friends from that. And then also from Juilliard, just like through, you know, all of the paces of learning in that way, just some people that are just so unworldly talented that you sometimes are in awe, and then you get to continue to spend time with these people.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then, but also on the practitioner side, you know, I think the thing I take away from Juilliard the most is being exposed to some coaches that just had unmatchable wisdom. You know, it was really a privilege to be able to sit with those people and then kind of realize how after the fact, like, wow, I really did have access to something very special there. Yeah.
That's incredible. And so now take us from Juilliard to the next step. Like, you're out of the nest of the school. Do you go right into having a career? Do you go into a young artist program? Do you start doing the competition circuit? Like, which one of these tracks or any of those tracks was the one that you took?
Totally. Right after graduating, I went to the Castleton Music Festival. So actually, Castleton is about half an hour from where I grew up, out in the Virginia countryside. So I had auditioned for that young artist program, and I had gotten in, and so I spent a summer there. But that also included going with Maestro Mazel to Spain in order to sing, you know, comprimario roles in Fanchula. And that was just an incredible experience to
I
leave
love that
graduation.
piece.
It's just my absolute favorite Puccini.
Yeah.
Because of this experience, really. I graduated. Part of this program was going over to Spain to sing this concert in Coruña, and I was a little jaded at the end of Juilliard. I was like, oh, is this going to work? How do I get a job? Like, how does this work? But then I kind of remember sitting in rehearsal, waking up a little bit one day and be like, you know what? You are sitting in the middle of an incredible orchestra with one of the greatest maestros ever, listening to him play some of the most beautiful, like direct some of the most beautiful music ever written. It's not so bad.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, I did that, and I went to, after we did Fanciulla there, we staged it at Castleton, and it was a really great experience to be around amazing colleagues, but in a more open setting. It's a little free of the river of school, and also I still to this day count Maestro Mazzella as a very big just kind of inspiration and kind of a supporter. He was very, very encouraging. I remember I sang like the captain of the police role in Figaro, and it's just a crazy thing, it like lasts for 2 seconds, but you come on and you like shout a high F, and then the whole, the quintuplet starts. Sorry. But I just remember I was scared out of my mind being a little like a young artist, and him just being like, go ahead, do it.
Right.
So it was just all the inspiration that I needed, and I really did appreciate his support through that. It made me know that I had something, to give. And then after that, I thought, okay, well, that was a fun summer. Now I've got to like find something to do. And I went back to living in New York, and I had an amazing amount of just friends that were in music and doing various, singing at these church service. A friend was the director of the Greek Orthodox Cathedral, so I sang like Orthodox Mass every Sunday. It was a really good church job. But I ended up actually going to work for IMG Artist Management. Just kind of because I had that arts administration experience before school. And so it was really great to, after struggling for some months to figure out like, how do I put this together into a life now? Working there. And it was a further blessing to learn the industry from that angle. I did production managing and nonprofit work, but to actually see the workings of how contracts are negotiated and how they get executed and what that whole framework looks like. It was a blessing in disguise, because at the time I was like, okay, well, this is a job in an office. I'm punching this clock. And I was like, this is getting me farther and farther away from what I think I want to do. But little did I realize that when I kind of stepped into more full-on work, I really did understand how the industry worked from like a 360-degree view. I could like talk to the stage manager about what it was like to like figure that out for 3 months. And then also like in seeing how contracts moved, I could be very specific and insightful about how my work could be cared for. So, so in terms though of how that turned into working, it was also, blessings in question. The question is, what don't you do? Nothing. No. I do not do nothing. I don't know. That makes sense. I keep moving. I keep hustling. That's what I do.
No, I think these are incredible skills to have. And I've been doing a lot of sort of master classes and workshops at universities and conservatories during this COVID time. And I've been telling when the students and or faculty ask, what advice do you give to young singers? One is to learn about the business aspect of the show.
Yes.
Like these schools need to implement curriculums where they do read over and comb through contracts and understand what the fine print means. That they do understand what everybody else's function in putting together of a production really, really means, so that you are performance literate when you walk into the room.
100. Oh, sorry, you cut out for a sec.
No, you're good.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think the thing that's been like the biggest blessing is walking into the part of performing, but understanding what everything else is that's going on. I mean, I've said this too in, forums of people are like, well, what's the best way to, make something or make a career in this way? And I said, learn the job of everyone around you. And that, I think that goes for anything, you've got to know what people are doing. That either connect to, support, or administrate your work.
Yeah.
If you don't see this bigger picture, how are you ever going to like form yourself within that context? So just learn everyone else's job so you know what yours is.
Exactly. So, okay, one of my regulars, well, I'm sure she has to be a regular if she knows this. I know you have receipts, so please show us a receipt. Okay, so one of the things, Davone, that we do on the show is that I show receipts, meaning evidence that my guests are brilliant, and I show them through videos and recordings. And I do have some. Davone's team was very gracious in giving me some incredible receipts, and we will get to them very soon. I promise. We're going to lead right into them. But thank you, Miss Shirley. I appreciate that. You've got some friends here.
Hello. Hi, Peter. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a minute.
Fantastic. So I want to ask you, because I look at your bio and I see so much variety, but what I don't see, and I'm curious about and intrigued about, is that I don't see what quote unquote regular, normal, traditional career path roles on your resume. Meaning, usually when you start out in the career, you sing some Mozart stuff and you sing some Puccini and you sing some Bellini and Rossini and all of that. And that is sort of absent. Is that on purpose? Is that what is the reasoning behind that?
Completely. It's been a long trip, and it started at Juilliard. One of the incredible things was, for the first time being around a lot of composers, really fascinated that, these friends, these colleagues were the people that would go into the world and make the things that we would perform, that they would be, a part of shaping where music exists currently and is going.
Yes.
I know that really struck me. And right after, actually in the middle of working for IMG, there were two things that happened that were kind of like seeds that were planted before I knew. And one of them was I met someone who became a very good friend, Matthew O'Coin. And we met at Harvard, and we did actually this Dunster House Opera, which is the undergraduate company. We did The Rake's Progress, and I sang Shadow, and I had a great time. And we had kind of the luxury of being able to coach it together for a whole year on Leonard Bernstein's piano that's there in Eliot House. But we got to know each other doing that. And then we both ended up at Juilliard at the same time. And he was there for composition. And then, in his genius, he's now won a MacArthur Genius Award, went over to the Met to be their youngest assistant conductor. And but all the while writing things, and one thing he wrote was a set of songs on Whitman poems, and we ended up presenting those songs for a director, Diane Paulus, at the American Repertory Theater, and they decided to commission it as an opera. So that essentially became my debut, my American debut in a way, in Boston with American Repertory Theater, and then also at BAM. So like my operatic entree was actually through a broader kind of theatrical or performing arts context. And it was quite an experience to premiere a role that was written for me. I sang a piece that I really connected to, but mainly because Matt and I knew each other, and we had known each other for years at this point, and he knew how to write for my voice. But what that also turned into in the middle of, IMG time was getting a very kind of fortuitous call from Juilliard that Peter Sellers, director, was hearing bass baritones for something. We just didn't know what.
Mm.
And so I actually left in the middle of a workshop day for Crossing, and I asked the producers, like, can I go? They asked me, I just got to take the one train up 2 stops. And so I sung for him, and I sang, Peter is very much, as you know, very much about the person. He's very much about who are you and how do you bring yourself to this. So he doesn't really require, an aria package. He says, sing what you care about right now. So what I sung was a song that a friend wrote. He was writing cantatas that were based on the stories of the Odyssey. And this really beautiful song that kind of shows my whole range from like real low to this like upper falsetto. About from the Odyssey, that's kind of like the Noah's flood story, but in Greek. And then I sang There's a Bomb in Gilead. And after that, he invited me to premiere Kaya Sariaho's Only the Sound Remains, which is an opera she wrote for 2 people. And it was for myself and countertenor Philippe Jarouski. And so we sang that. That was kind of my more European debut. We did that at the Dutch National Opera, which really champions new work. And then we did it at the Paris Opera and Palais Garnier, and then in Finland, and then in Madrid, and then in New York. But then I did works with John Adams, and it just kind of became this way of working, of premiering new things. And I think it kind of goes back to the beginning, starting with piano, playing violin for 14 years. And I had a certain, like music chop. I could really digest a score and present, an interpretation. And I think that allowed me to get along really well with composers because, they could see that their work could be taken care of. But also, I think the way that I came into classically performing, it was always with this onus of like, what is the reason? Because, I went to undergrad studying sociology, and then went to Juilliard because I felt I wanted to express something and I wanted to find the tools to better do that. And I really appreciate that with new work, the reason is always apparent. There's always a very clear impetus for why this work is happening, and everyone in the room and in the process is on a page about what's happening. Now, in terms of like older repertoire, I am interested in it. I'm interested in doing it, though, in contexts where the production is extremely intentional about why something is happening. Because if we can't, overtly and clearly communicate to an audience why they need to be engaging this story of yore, then personally, I am unmotivated to be a part of it. And that's kind of been the onus of a lot of the work that I've been involved in. And, I say it's been a journey because there's a time not too long ago, in the last year, whatever, where there's a stigma attached to championing new work because people claim that, you don't sing older things or, you can't do. And I've actually had to give myself permission lately to say, you know what, it's okay. And in fact, I've built my life of, at this point, of premiering works of really great living composers. And I really do appreciate that because it's allowed me to always care about the work that I was doing. It's been a blessing to, put my efforts towards saying things that I knew I had a reason for doing. And that doesn't go to say that, there's older things that are beautiful. I mean, my recital is riddled with Bach. Bach and spirituals are kind of companions throughout that entire thing. Even this larger piece called Were You There, which is this meditation on racist police brutality that'll end up, we could talk about that at some point. It has a whole legislative component, but it starts with a Handel aria.
Yeah.
And then also I have this residency right now with the Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra and just performing, different bits of Purcell and Rameau for their gala. But so it's like, I'm trying to find always the reason apparent or for why these things are happening. But
It's
also
incredible.
it's okay to do new work because it's for a reason. I know that I can give what I need to give if I know the reason why.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And so that brings us to our first receipt and evidence of what you just spoke about, working with great composers and great directors and great collaborators. This is actually where we met. Enjoy.
What is this celebration to me? What is this celebration to me? The 4th of July is yours, not mine. Upon your national tumultuous joy, I hear only the mourning of those whose chains heavy and grievous yesterday are rendered on this day all the more intolerable, all the more intolerable, all the more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them.
Now, Davone, that first of all, it was brilliant. And talking about having a reason to say something, the words of Frederick Douglass and being able to express those words at this time in that piece, what an incredible vehicle for you. And I remember being given that score, and it was the first time I ever sang anything of John Adams. And I was like, what is this? How am I going to learn this? And then you sing it and it sounds like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Talk to us about what we just heard and your relationship with John and Peter.
Completely. Excuse me.
And there's so many people in the chat. I'm going to put up some comments as you talk.
Yeah, that is the Act 2 aria from Girls of the Golden West, which is, what's going on? Hey, Jarrell. So Girls of the Golden West is the latest opera that John Adams had written, and it's where we met in San Francisco. And that aria in particular it is, I think, something really special because it is a text of Frederick. Oh,
it's a beast.
It's a beast. It's long. That's in like the opening. It goes, but it's that text is incredible because it's Frederick Douglass, being invited to speak for this group of white people to kind of demonstrate some sort of relationship where like this is a very learned Black man and going to about the beauty of America and how he was able to achieve, and what he chose to do with that was kind of point back at the audience and say, in this context, I actually have nothing to say about some sort of achievement because in the middle of all of this joy and celebration, my people are still thrown to the dogs in any sort of myriad ways. And
right.
The thing about that is those words, and I've seen them, spoken and reposted and even on built sides of buildings in our current time, those words do not go away. But in the context of that show, it's really incredible the way that Peter staged it, because he said, the whole show is based around this huge tree stump, or at least Act 2, which is a real thing. And we went to the actual tree. It's this huge sequoia tree that was cut down by the miners. That was at that time seen as some sort of, victory of technology that they were able to do that. But Peter always engaged it as, the beginning of just a terror of the American West, saying like, oh, we chopped down nature. That's actually not an accomplishment. And we actually danced on its corpse. But he said, we're going to reclaim that space and actually make it your pulpit. So, it was very, it was just a very huge kind of opportunity and like space to open up and like put all of that sort of rage. You know, the 4th of July is yours, not mine. I and my people have yet to experience that kind of independence. And that's what I'm kind of saying about popular, like current operatic works, is I can say those words and the distance between me and that aria is very small. Like, I would want to say those things. I'm always saying the thing. I have the blessing of being able to say the things that are actually most close to what I need to communicate. But in terms of relationship with John, I met John after actually a performance of Crossing of Matt's, because Matt is kind of a protege of John in a way, or like the continuation. And so I met him, and then I didn't realize, well, no, I didn't meet him then. What happened was, it was a final dress rehearsal, and someone was like, John Adams in the audience. I was like, oh, okay, no big deal. P's and Q's. But apparently he had seen the rehearsal, and then had decided to hire me for El Nino. It was becoming his 70th birthday, and he did a lot of concerts all over the world, including a tour of El Nino. And there's this amazing role that he wrote for Willard White, that Willard White and Don Upshaw and Lorraine Hunt Lieberson premiered at 2001 at Le Châtelet. And then, so, my incredible, beautiful colleague, Julia Bullock, kind of took up the helm of singing, the soprano role. And I sang the baritone, or the bass baritone role. But that was my getting to know John, and getting that kind of score. I always think, singing the music of a different composer, or a living composer, is learning a new language, really. Everyone has their own way. John has his idiosyncrasies. Kyle Variajo does, Carolyn Shaw, Taishon Sori, all of them have their very own unique voices. And in El Nino being my first John Adams piece, I gave myself about a year and a half to learn that piece. And for the first, 6 months, all I basically did was listen. I just listened to that incredible, Ken Nagano and Willard White and Don Upshaw recording, just to get the frame of the piece. It's like a 3-hour long thing. And so you just want to understand, like, what is this arc, and then how do I fit into this? And doing that kind of deeply for a long time really taught me John's language, how he speaks in eighth notes and quarters, where some other composers speak in, dotted sixteenths and whatever. It's like a different kind of texture. So I really I feel like cracked the code a little bit on how John tries to put words forward. And of course, his longtime collaborator, Peter Sellers, and they're kind of knit in a certain way. Peter, I met actually a little bit before that. And like I said, he's just so amazing at allowing, singers to be people, to bring themselves to it, to always find that close relationship to the material.
I loved that experience, and the two of them together. I mean, what a beautiful, perfect storm that is. In that, Peter makes the rehearsal hall probably one of the safest places that you could ever be. And that's incredible. And it's such a gift. And John too, he was so very hands-on with the piece, and he would make corrections after hearing. He said, now that I hear a human being sing that, I don't think that this serves you well. Let's go ahead and change this and use this and do that. It's just such a beautiful collaborative energy that working with a living composer and with a composer like that is such a gift, such a gift.
Completely.
And so I wanted to talk to you about this, I call creative genius that you have going on. And one of the things that I was so struck by recently was this piece entitled Vigil for Breonna Taylor. Because I think of all of the hideous murders of Black bodies that are going on and have gone on, hers strikes me really to the center of my heart in a way that I'm not sure that I could verbalize, at least not now. But seeing the advertisement and the preview of what you did was so beautiful and prideful, and it gave her and her life such dignity. And so I'm going to go into my bag and pull out another receipt and share with the audience exactly what I'm talking about, and then you can chime in after.
His darkness, we will bring the light.
Oh my God, so beautiful. So beautiful, so powerful, so intentional. Can you tell me where you started with that? How did that come to you, and how did you then bring it to life?
Right. And then there's like a bit of a commercial before. But yeah, it's been all, as with anything, a long journey. And that's actually not even, the latest stop on that journey. Yeah, I'd encourage you also to go to Lincoln Center at Home. There's kind of like another version of that video, and I'll explain how I got there. So with my deep love of living composers, I was in Amsterdam actually when we did Girls of the Golden West. There was another time working at Dutch National Opera, which is a really, really incredible company. But I had a developing relationship with a composer who wrote a lot of string music, and is kind of this combination of Fauré and James Blake, even.
Mm-hmm.
This like interesting intersection. And we would do these improv sessions where it was kind of a game. We would set like a mood and a timer, and we had to like pick 4 different moods and only spend about a minute on each one or so. And so we'd say like, Benjamin Britten, Fauré, Bach, and then we would just go through and just play around and make up text in the time, and he would improv. And so this actually came out of an improv when we set the mood as Fauré. And that text came out, completely formed, which I thought was a really special thing. We were just in a studio in Amsterdam and hearing those chords that he was playing. It just came out, where there is darkness, will bring light, hallelujah. And, it kind of has the same cadence as a very standard, gospel song, but I thought it was special that those are the words that came out with it. And so I had that song for a while. And then it kind of actually the fall before, this past last summer even. So all of these things started to come to the forefront of the news again. And, because we all, I think, were in the middle of this, whatever we're in the middle of, people had a little more time to focus, or, certain people that hadn't thought about it or focused before did so. And so that led to a kind of a deeper engagement by society and culture in general about, the breadth of this tragedy. And I live, when I'm not moving around, with my brother in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he works in lobbying for a good governance and voter access organization. So he's and focused on HBCUs. So he's always, in the more political realm of all of this. And both of us sitting home, watching CNN on nonstop. And just being inundated again with all of the trauma of this, Breonna Taylor's death, George Floyd's death, and then even my grandmother calling us and saying, close your curtains at night. You don't know who's walking by your door. This is an unsafe time, really. And she's still always looking out for us in that way. And wanting to do something, just feeling like I needed some sort of outlet or some sort of solace in that. And so I thought, I can hold a vigil too. I can have this song and I can pull in, this imagery, and kind of create some sort of meditative space. And I shared it with my family members, and they thought that it was, a nice, and peaceful thing to do. But actually, so that video, there's a new version of that video that actually takes out all of the imagery of Black people in kind of reverence and mourning, because, to be completely frank, it was shown for a recital through LA Opera, and I had a response from a donor, an older white woman, who made me feel like by watching that film, she was let off the hook from actually being involved in change. In essence, saying like, oh, that was so sad and so beautiful, and thank you for making that. But I wanted to say, like, you're one of the wealthiest people I know. Like, what are you actually doing to connect to this thing beyond engaging in other people's trauma? So I thought that if this video is going to live in the broader world, of the performing arts, nonprofit performing arts, which is a largely white audience, it had to be doing more work than that. And actually leading people to actually, commute their experience into change. So that version of the video actually was set aside, and I made a new version that didn't have any pictures, of vigils or mourning, and replaced the pictures essentially with a guided embodiment exercise. So I call the whole video now an exercise in empathy. And that's why I encourage you to check this out. It's on Lincoln Center at Home. But the whole point being, the whole idea being like, if I can put people in their bodies, then maybe their minds can receive something that we haven't fully engaged. So, I say, feel the weight of your body in the chair. Pay attention to your breath. Feel the surface your hand is touching. Imagine, how you slept last night. And then I kind of ask the question, did you wake up this morning? So they're kind of what's going on. And then in the middle of that, in the middle of this song, which I hope, I'm staring at you so you're with me, focusing, I say, the words, Breonna Taylor was shot dead in the middle of the night. She was unarmed. She was innocent. And the whole point of, giving people this beautiful song, but also trying to put them in a embodied state is so that that statement actually hits in a way that's like, it's not a news headline. It's actually something that I hope you more emotionally engage. And then the part is what I think is most important is, aside from it shows Breonna Taylor's name and then puts it in the context of the hundreds of names, that it continues to grow. There's a site called Type Their Names instead of where people can go and actually type the hundreds and hundreds of names we pulled from that document. But the step that's important is there's a guide, there's a list of steps at the end of the video that say, identify the emotion that you just experienced, try to understand the cause of that emotion, research organizations that are working to eradicate the cause of that emotion, give to them as you are able, give your time, give your money, $1, whatever, as you are able, and then repeat. So trying to move people from not just feeling sad about something, but saying, why do I feel this way? And who is out here already doing the work to help and pointing the attention at them? Because, there are organizations, activists who have been in this fight decades, centuries.
Yeah.
Their work is one that needs to be lifted up. So like my work must point to that. And part of being able to continue that train, because it's just like, it's not enough to put this out. It really has to be a part of a longer journey to seeing how can the arts actually turn into change. So I had a forum recently through Lincoln Center, and that brought together the intersection of this piece with the Louisville community. So I went there and sang with the Louisville Orchestra. I sang this song, Vigil, but then also now have gotten to know Ja'Cory Arthur, who's an incredible activist and organizer who's on the city council, youngest city council member, who is also, an incredible Black man, is a teacher and a hip hop artist, but in the city, doing the work that needs to be done there after this death, this murder. And then also Representative Attica Scott, who is one of 2 Black females within the Kentucky State House, who actually is the person who championed Breonna's law. So she's the person that actually, helped make that legislation get through the city and then through the state, and is now championing it throughout the country. So just having a conversation about what can this song do to point to the work that you're doing, because you are making the legislative change to actually eradicate the thing I feel like I need to mourn for.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And thank you for that work. But I want to ask you, was there ever a time before you sort of dove into this work as an advocate through your art? Was there apprehension or fear that it could hurt your art and hurt you as an artist?
Oh, that it could hurt me as an artist?
Do you think, well, at the beginning, did you have any sort of apprehension about diving into this artist advocacy lane that you're in so brilliantly? Did you have any fears that it would hurt your brand or hurt you as an artist or hurt you from getting work in other places? Is it going to label you as a problem child or difficult? Or did you have any of that? Or were you just like, this is what I have to do?
Yes and no. Yes. I'll start with the no. No, because it seemed like a natural extension of what inspires me to make music in the first place, which is to find, the reason, the apparent reason, and also find how every role that I can engage can be honestly filled up with my own experience. So yes, I knew that it was a logical continuance of that work. The only sound I wanted to make at that point was one that was in reference of my lived experience. And that was the way that I could do that. And I say, maybe that, yeah, I think I addressed the no. So I wasn't afraid in that because of those reasons. And I was afraid because I knew I needed to take care. I knew that it was very important to address these things in a way that, was honoring of the context and also doing work in the world beyond just, engaging an idea, engaging a tragedy and not following through. Because just to pay lip service to these sorts of things actually doesn't do it. So that's why, that video is one stop along a very long train of, having forums with Lincoln Center, making this video in a way that leads people to their own activistic engagement. And then a further development of that, which actually isn't really announced yet, but I'm very proud that it's kind of furthering that mission of how do you engage this one thing, but lead to what's actually going to change the world. And that's actually not what I do. I'm called or, suggested to be an activist in certain ways, but I actually I haven't fully given myself, the right to claim that title, because there are actually people that do the real work. There are people that, like my brother, who work in lobbying organizations, people that collect money and get people galvanized in order to change the law. That's what actually makes this change, changing the legislature. But I do realize that I am blessed with a platform, to point to those people. So as long as what I'm doing to engage tragedy is to actually seed the platform to what needs to actually have the attention, then I feel justified. So that fear has been dissipated by that growing intention.
Amazing. Like, I totally see you as like a modern day, like Langston Hughes and Paul Laurence Dunbar and Malcolm X and all of these great leaders, but then also like Margaret Bonds and Florence Price. Their art spoke about the times. Their art, fed the world and fed society through a beautiful way, through a beautiful medium about what was going on in the world, especially through the eyes and minds and hearts of Black people. And you're doing that in such a beautiful, powerful, and necessary way. So how do you operate that then with your team, the people who are around you to help propel your career? Like, is it an open discussion? This is what I want to do, or this is what we think you should do, or this is where we think you should do it. How does it come together with the team for Davone?
Completely. It's been a very big learning process and a joyful one, because it's a blessing to have help. It's a blessing to have, the privilege for people to kind of believe in what you're doing and give what they can to help it move forward. So learning process in terms of, I have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of things that I'm passionate about. And I'm really, and I say blessing all the time because everything is, but
Yes.
I have the blessing to, work with some people that continue to go with me on that journey of discovery. And it's more so been, how can I employ the gifts of these people, gifts of organization, gifts of messaging, in order to further what I'm trying to do. A lot of times it's learning because it's saying, oh, like I have to continue to have clarity with what my intention is. And then I can actually, engage the team in order to help further articulate that. Just a little window into that. I really do. And I think this comes from the broader, arts administration, the blessing of seeing the whole mechanism. Every part of the interaction with the audience every bit of interaction is important. It's part of the message, meaning like through publicity, how things are said, you're setting up the context for the piece before people even come to the recital, to the concert, to the thing that you're making. So it was very important for me to, get on the same page with my incredible publicists. They're wonderful, but also saying like, you are an extension of my work. It's not that you just slap a label on it or like put an ad in a certain place, because so much of my work is very much about like, what is it we're trying to say? What is the intention? Then every piece of media connected to that has to be of one accord. So, I say like, you are an artist just as much as I am, and we together get to interpret and share this message. So we've got to be on the same page. And then also on the more managerial side, it's really about, working with organizations to see like how they are open to this sort of collaborative or intentional work. Because I really do realize I walk into, certain performance contexts with a lot of thought and a lot of, vigor in terms of what I would like to communicate. And it's like really important to be building that relationship well before you show up to the first rehearsal. And that's led to some really happy collaborations. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, let's have a look at another collaboration and project. Well, you'll just have to see, and then we'll talk about it after. You've got great people. Lisa was fabulous and sent me all this good stuff.
Nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows my sorrow. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Beautiful. Would you tell us what that was? Where was that from?
That was a video that was taken from the first kind of production of Were You There?, which is a piece I made with my close friend colleague Zach for the American Modern Opera Company. We have kind of an ongoing relationship with the American Repertory Theater. And so we developed that for a festival there. And, I always say that it's a journey, but what that ended up being was another way to kind of address racist police brutality. This piece was born actually of a time, 2014, 2015, when an entirely other, roster of atrocities was at the forefront of the news. That other cycle, including, Trayvon Martin and Philando Castile and Sandra Bland. And so this piece was made after that summer, so in the fall. And the point there, I call it a meditation on racist police brutality, because it's further about, emotional engagement of the thing. So the simple structure of how that show works is you think it's there's a piano set up, there's, audience is seated, and I walk in wearing a blazer and stand in the crook of the piano and saying Handel's Leave Me Loathsome Light, which is a song kind of about death, or kind of being put to rest. And so you go, oh, that's nice. And people clap. And then I step out into a space that you haven't really seen yet. And there's a number of light bulbs. In that show, they were hanging from the ground or hanging from the ceiling. That was the first version. Now they are on little kind of statues that are from the ground. And I sing this spiritual "Were You There When They Crucified My Lord" as I kind of go around and kind of, address these sculptures, these light bulbs on these poles. And over the course of the show, you come to realize that each pole represents the victim of racist police brutality, and the height of the pole is equal to the age of the victim at the time of their death. And then you come to realize that the light bulbs are specific people. And we've done this show in a number of places, and it's always very important that the people that are memorialized are representative of the space we're in. So the Washington Post has a pretty exhaustive database of those murdered in these contexts. And so wherever I am, I go to this database and pull people from, that community so that people understand this is down the street. This is, in my town. So putting those people in the context of the more known names so that these other people who don't have the space also have it. But in the middle of the show, also, you come to realize that my voice can turn the lights on. So if I sing louder, the light bulbs get brighter. And if I stop singing, the light bulbs go out. And then by the end of the show, as you saw, I start a sing-along, Amazing Grace. And so at this point, all of the lights are going crazy and the entire audience is like really illuminating the space. And then I leave. And it's kind of a challenge to say, are you going to keep singing Amazing Grace? Because when they stop singing, all of the lights go out. Thus, people stop using their bodies, their engagement, their voice. These people go away. So that was a first version of that. We've done that with the Knoxville Symphony and San Diego Symphony and a couple other places around. But that idea has evolved a lot too. What is this thing? How can we actually lead this to change? Because, people will come see that show and go, oh, that was nice, and go to dinner and say, well, that was, they feel like they did something because they felt something. But how do you move that forward? And so we've been developing this idea of taking that show on a 50-state tour that'll actually kind of have to happen over the course of 5 years. So those do like units of states. But the point there is to build relationships with activists and organizers in the city in one representative city in each state in order to bring them into the show. So it's kind of like going to a town hall or something, most likely not performing in a concert venue, in a gymnasium, in some sort of open space, hopefully in the summer out in the field, because those statues can exist, they're battery operated. And say, hi, we are here to talk about, or I want to introduce you to this person who is a national or, local Black Lives Matter chapter leader, or this is someone who, is actually one of your local legislators who's, championing, police body cam legislation. Meet these people and actually slowly translate them into the show so that they're the people speaking the names of the people that, passed away in their community. And so after that, after the audience meets the people in their backyard doing this work and sees them in this emotional, reverential context, then breaking back out into the town hall situation so that people understand how they can connect to the work of these specific activists and organizers. So the show, in essence, only serves as an intermediary platform. We draw the audience out because hopefully they want to come see a show of some interest, but also are made to sit with each other and with their community members in order to see what change could look like. And just last little part of that, in each city, we really hope to focus on a different part of criminal justice reform. So one city will be focused on body cam legislation. Another city will be focused on no-knock warrants. Another city will be focused on mandatory minimums for sentencing, so that over the course of the country, after these years, we can actually build a resource to say, this is what incremental criminal justice reform looks like. Here's how it is happening in every single state, and this is what it looks like for the country.
That's amazing. That is absolutely incredible and necessary. Thank you for that work, for that amazing, amazing work that you're doing. I wanted to talk to you about something that was just made public that I think is so incredibly exciting, is that you're going to be taking on the role of Malcolm X in The Life and Times of Malcolm X by the great Anthony Davis for Michigan Opera Theater. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
And what better person, especially after having this conversation, what better person on the planet to embody Malcolm X than you. Can you tell us about what this means, and if you can tell us about the production, when it's going to happen, and singing Anthony Davis's music, the Pulitzer Prize winning composer that he is. So tell us all about that.
Yes. And before I do that, I'm going to plug this computer in before it dies.
Yes, right. This is the world that we're in, folks. Technology, everybody needs to charge and recharge and plug in and all of that. I had to go and get a mobile hotspot device because the building that I'm staying in New Orleans, the Wi-Fi is a bit questionable. It's not like the fierce fast Wi-Fi that I have at home in the comfort of my apartment there. But, we make do so that we can continue to bring you all this important and necessary content of these wonderful artists that I have been able to bring onto this platform. And just so you know, like in 5 weeks, I think in 5 or 6 weeks, it will be my 1-year anniversary of this show, like every week for the last year. Like, it's outrageous, crazy. Like, I didn't plan for this to happen, but here we are. So tell us about Malcolm X.
That's incredible.
Gosh. Thank you.
Malcolm X. I'm very excited and honored to be able to portray, this work and his life, and continuing to get to know the incredible Anthony Davis, and how he and his collaborator, his cousin, Tulani Davis, have set this story. Yeah, so I recently have also been announced as Detroit's Michigan Opera Theater's artist in residence, and the whole point of that residency is to get to know, the city of Detroit, get to know the context in which that opera company sits, so that by the end of the season, when I perform Malcolm X, there's actually a broader connection to this city that was actually a large part of Malcolm X's life. And so, long story short with that, the residency will be composed of a number of regular visits to Detroit. The first one, I think, is going to be in June. So Malcolm X was associated with 3 different churches from very, very different denominations. And so hopefully forming relationships with each of those churches by going to church. So, the first times I'll just go to the services. I won't, it's not going to be I perform there or something for the opera, but just to say, I'm here. I went to your church service 2 weeks in a row, and I'll be back in about a month. See you then. But hopefully after going to services in these 3 places or so, like over, 2-3 visits and building a real relationship there, then maybe singing something with the service, maybe, speaking a bit about what this work is that actually ties into the history of their own church, their own community center. I always consider a Black church as the community center. So there's that one layer. Another layer is getting to know artists from different genres. Techno in Detroit was born of Black people. I don't know if people really know that, but yes. And then it was called house music. And then different German folk heard it and kind of turned it into what we know as techno. And I think we could find, analogs for that kind of borrowing in many other parts of our art world. But I'm really interested in getting to know, that community there. There's this older gentleman who's kind of considered the godfather of techno. So getting to know him, and also someone who's representative of the lineage of Motown, and getting through these visits to know these different artists, with a hope of collaborating at some point later in the year. There's actually been some incredible work with combining techno with Purcell by a countertenor named Klaus Nomi, who passed away some time ago. But, the idea of like driving rhythm, it really does connect to kind of Baroque ideas. And I hope to reveal more of those. But even in terms of, Philip Glass, in terms of, serial music, but also Motown, and how can Black stories that are told through different aesthetics be given the space and the, gravitas or support even that opera has. I really want to get to know, of course, this larger Detroit community, but also show that our stories belong here. our stories deserve this sort of uplift, this sort of context, this sort of scale and care. And I think I can only like pull people into that if I like am present and get to know them. So that's part of that. But and in addition to that, I'm going to be serving as a creative partner for the Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra, which is kind of like a residency, but in a much different fashion. Yeah.
That's incredible. Like you are so busy on top of being so like in tune with what's going on. Like you have your finger on the pulse of the nation and through music and art. And it's just absolutely tremendous, which brings me to the Black Clown. First of all, I'm upset that I could not get a ticket because it was the hardest ticket in town to get in New York City. I was over it. And I had heard so much about it. And before you talk about it, I'm going to show the folks a little bit. And you can see why I was upset I wasn't in the house. Listen, I was ready to fight people outside the theater. I was like, give me your ticket. Like for real, like that, just that clip. I was like, I have to see this. Like they need to remount it and it needs to have like a 6-week run. Like I'm putting this in the atmosphere. Like you have to bring it back.
Everything is possible and it actually may be coming back, but that's all I'll say.
I'm gonna put that in the atmosphere.
It was nice watching. I miss these people so much. This cat. I mean, it's just an absurdly incredible group of people on that stage. Yeah, singing that song that we figured out.
I mean, the energy just leaps off of the screen and into your spirit, like for real. So where did this concept come from and from?
So, in my theme of everything's a journey, that was a long one. That was about 8 years from conception to birth. And so I guess this love of living composers, it goes a little back before Juilliard. So at Harvard, I met a friend named Michael Schachter, and he's a composer who worked, in classical traditions, but also could write jazz. He understood that way. He played piano for the Kumba Singers, which is like the black choir at Harvard, and kind of keeping the African diasporic tradition. So I was like, okay, you are a Jewish man, but you understand how to engage this a little bit. So, we really got along. We sang in choir together too. And I remember one of my jobs after graduating undergrad. Oh, so Thank you. One of my jobs after undergrad was singing at the National Shrine in DC, a church job. One that I really loved. I mean, it's a big old cathedral, and the choir, they're very serious about the music program. So it was really nice to just be with those kinds of colleagues who really cared about getting Palestrina masses perfect, every single Sunday. But in the middle of that, it started to feel a little bit like a job because I was missing, Providence Baptist Church was an hour down the road. And so they have a homily. It's about 12 minutes long. I remember, some people use that as a bathroom break, but I used it to kind of think and write my friend an email. And I said, I really want to sing things that I care more closely about, something that pulls on my own church tradition, things that pull on, saying something I know that with every ounce of myself, I will be engaged. So we looked around for a lot, and we found this poem called The Black Clown, looking through Hughes's extended works. It was a deep cut. Like, you couldn't even look up this poem on the internet at the time, really. It's in a manual, or it's in a small group of poems called The Negro Mother. And it's a very unique set of poems that Hughes invented a form for. So each poem has a column titled The Mood and a column titled The Poem. And Hughes very geniusly, he writes at the beginning, it's instructions. It's The Black Clown, a monologue to be spoken by a pure-blooded Negro in the white suit and hat of a clown to the music of a piano or an orchestra. So the beginning of the poem is a stage direction, essentially. And then the poem goes on to say, you laugh because I'm poor, black, and funny, and reaches its conclusion, which is the song we just saw, Say to Off Home, and You Can't Keep Me Down, Tear Off the Garments. But in the mood column, he essentially continues to give stage directions. He says, a bitter note creeps into the music, or backs bent like in the field. Or entrance like joyously like clowns. So, you start to think, like, if I were to perform this poem, I guess I have to perform these instructions too. And I thought, okay, well, this can translate into song. And so we thought of writing it more like, they're just hammering away out there. We thought of writing it more like a song cycle, traditional, Winterreise, Schwanengesang, something that was just like, you take a section of the poem and you make a song about it. But when we did that, we got that version. We're like, this isn't really enough, because Hughes packs so much information into this 2-page text. It's like, this actually, if I was to do this in a recital, would I wear a costume? Would I act it out? What would I do? And because I had that relationship with the American Repertory Theater doing Matt's opera, someone encouraged me. They say, well, why don't you tell them about this idea? So I went up there, I sang through the 26-minute version, and they said, there's something here. There's a show in here, and we can figure it out. But then, so that was it took us 2 years to get to the song cycle. Wow. You're busy, you're doing stuff, you talk with your friend. I went to go see my friend who had 2 babies over the course. He's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, getting his doctorate. So 2 years into that process, they said, oh, we think there's a show in here. And then it was another 2 years of just developing it, of thinking it in this new frame of like, how does this actually move onto a stage? How do you decide what people will do with their bodies to tell this story? So doing that for another 2 years, it then became formally commissioned. So the ART said, okay, this is clear enough. Now we will actually pay you to do this more. So they did that. Amen. And then we worked for basically another year and a half or so to really shape it up. And then it went into workshopping. So we did a vocal, like just to sing through the score and hear it all, not on a computer, with students at Michigan, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and then took ideas and worked on it more. About 6 months later, had a staging workshop. So we had an incredible group of Broadway actors, singers from a whole other tradition, because that's kind of the style of the show. And I guess I should talk about, the style that we went with. We spent so much time thinking, like, what is this thing? Is it an oratorio? Is it a musical? Is it an opera? Because it's not exactly a musical, because musicals, there's a song, there's some text, and you kind of bop along the story. This was a poem that, in a very succinct way, walks through a Black man's oppression in America, shows it contextualized within 300 years of history, and then shows transcendence above that because of the honoring of that past. So, you take a small, we thought it was an oratorio because you take a small piece of text like, you laugh because I'm poor, black, and funny, not the same as you. And we sing that over and over again for about 8 minutes, just like an oratorio, Bach, same phrase for the whole song. But to really dig into it and give other people opportunities to sing it, like I say it, it passes on to this soprano, it passes on to this tenor. So everybody gets a chance at, identifying it for themselves and hearing it through all these angles. And we do that for the whole poem. So you see and feel it. The other, I could go on, but so Hughes, another thing he geniusly does is basically sums up Black history in about 8 paragraphs. Okay. He basically starts that section. We call this section the history lesson. 300 years in the cotton and the cane, empty-handed as I began, a slave under the whip, beaten and sore. But then that turns into, it walks through it a little more. Freedom, oh freedom, Abe Lincoln done set me free. One little moment to dance with glee. So we go all the way to the Emancipation Proclamation, but he kind of makes fun of it. It's like, I'm free now. And we staged it as a joke. You might have seen there's people dancing with a noose. It's this big kind of like, Bugsby Berkeley Broadway number to be ridiculous. Say, we have the Emancipation Proclamation. We are free. It's a joke. It's not true. So then the next scene, we say, we talk about Jim Crow era. We say, no land, no house, no job, nowhere to go. Black in a white world, you can die. No one will care. These are Hughes's words. And we kind of show moving in modernity with, the continued suppression of opportunities for African Americans to the point of, the darkest side of it, there's this image of, climbing a ladder but not getting anywhere. And this kind of saying there's a turn towards the end. And he says, suffer, struggle, work, pray, and fight, smash my way through to manhood's true right, which is through all of this train of history we've walked through. Actually, the way we've got here is through suffer, struggling, working, praying, and fighting. We have that strength. And because we're able to acknowledge it, we know that we can move into something else. So by the end, that song that we heard, it's called Say to All Foemen. So the end of it, say to all foemen, you can't keep me down, tear off the garments that make me a clown, cast off this role you put me in, rise from the bottom out of the slime, look to the stars out yonder, calling through time. And that's just saying, you know what, we know where we've been, now we can know where we're going. And I'm really happy with that particular song. I love the whole show, but that song in particular was like a really special birth because, Mike had originally written it and it was this beautiful like culmination, like, rise from, out of the slime. And it kind of like was this like existential realization. I was like, no. This is a gospel song. Like, say to all, can't keep me, tear off the garments. So we spent, a day listening to Duke Ellington Come Sunday and Georgia Mass Choir and Fred Hammond and just the whole breadth of gospel tradition and just to say to all foemen and just to bring that because it's in the words. He writes it that way. And then just to finish going on too much about this,
Not at all.
The final part of it, I think, is really special. And you hear it at the end of that video because it says, calling through time. But what we do is expand it. It was this awesome thing where, standard gospel 2-clap, calling through time. And then we go to the 3-clap, calling, to show that like this message reverberates through literal time rhythmically. But then it goes into a slow 2-clap, calling, and then we go one more higher. So it stretches the 3-clap, calling, to show, that very grounding Black church tradition of, clapping, but showing we have all these meters, we have all these scales, and we want to push this message out. I was particularly excited to like use that one gospel cadence to show expansion. Anyway, that's that show. Come see it. If it shows up again, it might.
Listen, if it shows up again, I'm first in line or I'm fighting somebody. Like, for real.
We will get you a ticket. We will make sure.
Yes. put me in the press corps. I'll wear, you know, a little
800%.
I'm with the press. So one more career question. Tell us about winning the Sphinx Award of Excellence. That had to be quite an honor to receive such an award from an organization like that.
It was a deep, deep honor. You know, it's one of the things you don't know if you're up for or whatever. I just got a call one day and they said, you know, we've chosen you as a recipient of this, and it came as a huge surprise and a huge welcome one. That actually I learned of that during the Lincoln Center production of Black Clown, and yeah, it's such an honor to be kind of, you know, welcomed into a family of really incredible creators of color who have just been in, you know, this classical music world and trying to, you know, eke out and ensure our existence and our voices in these contexts that aren't necessarily representative of us. But, you know, it's a further affirmation that we are here and we are doing. So it was really an honor to be invited to that context. And it's a really special award because of how it's awarded. You know, you get a medal, but more importantly, you're able to share, you know, some remarks with your family. There's a very small kind of lunch that happens at the Kennedy Center, so you can you have to reflect on your path. I remember I quoted Clark Sisters song. Oh, which one was it? I forget. Now I'm forgetting. Anyway, I'm going to forget. I'm just going to come back at a certain point. But then in the evening, there's a formal dinner at the Supreme Court. And that never happens. It's not an event space. It's a very special honor to be able to, you know, be in the court that way and have dinner in the main chamber. And that's because the awards are hosted by a justice. So they're now usually hosted by Justice Sotomayor, who is a huge supporter of the arts. And, you know, being a woman of color is completely aligned with this mission of the Sphinx organization. And so, you know, it was really incredible to be able to invite my grandparents and my brother and family members to, you know, have this beautiful dinner at kind of the seat of this country's legislature. And it was a really special opportunity to figure out what to sing, because they invite all the medalists to sing. And Jessie Montgomery was also a medalist that year. And so I met her then, and then got to, you know, see her and meet her. And that was wonderful. And so I thought, you know, I could sing some songs. I could, I could stand in the crook of the piano and do something. But I really did take it as a, you know, a charge to answer the scale that in the kind of, yeah, just the opportunity of it. So earlier that year, I went to the opening of the Reach Center at the Kennedy Center, this really amazing outdoor communal space. And I saw the Children of the Gospel Choir perform. So the DC, Washington Performing Arts Children of the Gospel Choir, and was blown away. You know, I saw it on a Sunday morning. Or Sunday afternoon, I just went to my home church, Providence Baptist Church, and drove to DC to see this event. And they just, you know, continued the church service singing, you know, everything from That's How the Good Lord Works to Total Praise, to just all kinds of, I mean, just the most excellent, you know, group of 80 young Black people singing in an incredible way. And I was just completely floored. And I said, you know, we have to do something. And I didn't know what, but we have to do something at a certain point. And then it became, you know, it seemed possible that I could invite some of them to come perform with me at the court, because it's like, you know, we should share this. So we got 30 of the students to come, and we sang this arrangement that I made with Mike, who actually wrote Black Clown, of Lift Every Voice and Sing. So I thought, you know, what am I going to sing at the Supreme Court? I sang some Bach. I sang Quia Feci di Himania from Magnificat, because it's, you know, a beautiful song of praise. I sang a short piece of Julius Eastman, a Black gay composer whose work is incredible. Everyone should always check out more about him. But that was all a prelude to this Lift Every Voice and Sing, with this essentially Black youth choir, mass choir in a way. And yeah, that was a personal achievement, just to be able to invite, these young people and be with them and sing this song, which is very literally my favorite song. So
Wow. Tremendous. And congratulations.
thank
Absolutely
you.
huge congratulations. So now I have some quick fire, non-businessy questions so that the folks can get to know Davone a little bit better. So first question is, and actually hearing this, doing this interview with you, I'm not sure if there are any other hours in the day that you have. What do you do when you're not working and creating? How do you let your hair down? What do you do to relax and have fun?
Right. Couple things. I really like long walks. I know that sounds really cliche, but it's really true. Growing up in the country, I really do appreciate being outside. So it's always important, get your body moving. It's the best way to get warmed up too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
walk outside and get it all together. But yeah, just trying to be present in a context that's not in front of a computer screen or not in a rehearsal room, even just someplace where you can let your mind process and go other places. So nature, hiking. I was a Boy Scout for 11 years, so I really do appreciate any sort of outdoor nature activities. Counter to what people might think about what I like to be up to. Showers. I know that sounds common as well, but showers really are my happy place. Traveling around a lot, it's really grounding. I've been known to shower 3 times in a day for like an hour at a time. It's another great place to just think, be present, let thoughts move, but also figure out vocalizations. Like figure out the nitty gritty of interpretations, and you can sing the same phrase 50 times and decide this is how it goes. So showers definitely. And then last but definitely not least, coffee. I am a big coffee lover. I have even when I travel now, I have a pour over V60 kit and a grinder and the whole kettle situation, even a snail. Yeah, and that's partly because one of my good friends one of my best friends, half Greek, half Costa Rican, and Costa Rica is known for their coffee. And so I went there a few times to visit him and his family, and it's just natural. Everyone is drinking it literally in every tiny town, you have an espresso and it tastes like electric chocolate. And once you do that, it's hard to go back to Starbucks even. So it really did spoil me, tasting this, kind of natural, organic way. It's like, well, I like putting that in my body and kind of taking care of how to make it. Yeah, it's a good
Fantastic.
25 minute ritual. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could drink coffee like that. I love the smell of it and I love the taste of it, but it messes with my reflux.
Right.
It makes me so sad.
Right.
Oh,
I'll be careful.
But yeah. Okay. So next question. Is there a city or country or place that you have been that you would love to go back to when you're not working?
Costa Rica. I'll say it again. It's the only place that I go where I don't work at all. I just sit in the rainforest.
Awesome. So now, are you a breakfast, brunch, lunch, dinner, or dessert person?
I'm a dessert person. No, I'm a lunch person who is secretly a dessert person.
Okay. And so what's on your lunch plate?
On my lunch plate, anything with flavor. Quite literally, I'm a really adventurous eater. I'll try anything once, but it's got to have some flavor. I travel with my hot sauce and my aged balsamic vinegar, just in case there's no flavor. It's all I can work
hot
it out.
Sauce in your bag swag. I'm here for it.
Always.
I'm here for it. What are you watching on TV? Are you Netflixing? And if so, what is it?
What am I Netflixing? What am I watching? Most recently, I watched WandaVision, which is really amazing on Disney Plus. It's a really cool show that moves through time. And I'm also real specific. So I'm watching on Hulu this documentary about WeWork, and it's kind of about how.
Mm,
So I was talking to my brother the other day, and both he and I have this like odd love of '90s suspense dramas, because it really is a certain kind of protagonist, like falling prey to their own kind of craziness, you know.
yeah.
And then so we were talking the other day about how documentaries of these failed entrepreneurs who happen to be of usually of a certain identity are also falling prey to their own devices. So it's kind of an interesting version of that same genre.
Awesome. Now, my next question is, and I don't know how you can answer it because you do everything. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Wow. I would say just explorers, people that really just get to be in. The first word that came to mind was spelunking. I know that seems really wrong, but like people that do cave diving, especially
Yeah.
the ones that are underwater, just it seems beautiful if your whole life is about, finding the corners of the world that people haven't really been.
I get sucked into those Planet Earth series where,
Right.
where people are like discovering stuff that's under. I'm like, oh my God, there's like this whole universe
Hmm.
underneath us and existing. It's so beautiful and actually calming to watch that.
Definitely.
Um, is there something you would never want to attempt?
Heart surgery.
Mm,
Yeah, there are some people that in this world that are so, I don't know. I really do believe that everyone is an artist in their own right, and it's just the artisanship is whatever you're passionate about, and there are people that are artful at dealing with the human body, and I would never want to think that I could do that kind of art.
yeah. Now, as we close out, because listen, we've been talking for almost 2 hours. I cannot believe it.
Woo!
Um, two, two, two things. One, I want you to tell us that if heaven exists, what
Mm.
would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did no harm and you made a difference.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Mm.
That's really, really beautiful and profound too. And before my last question, I'll just say to everybody, I'm not doing a show next week because I can't, because it's Tech Week here in New Orleans, and every
Mhm.
night next week is on
Wow,
stage.
what a blessing to be in a tech week.
I know, a Tech Week, right?
Yes,
Stage
jealous.
managers giving calls and coming to stage, and you hear the orchestra tuning. Like I'm like, I don't even know if I'm ready, but but we'll
Amazing.
pick up back for the first Monday of May with Grammy Award winning bass baritone Deshaun Burton. He'll be
Yes.
here, so make sure you come back then. And also be reminded that all of the Black opera interviews are being turned into podcasts as well. So wherever you get your podcasts, right there, you will find Black Opera Live and be able to follow us there as well. And also, we have a Spotify channel celebrating all kinds of Black music and Black recordings. So please check that out as well. So, Davone, also don't sign off when we say goodbye. I want to say goodbye to you privately when we get off the air.
All right.
And I just want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your art and all the beauty that you're pouring forth into our world and into our society. And I just wish you all the success that your heart and hands can hold. And I am so proud of you. And it is so exciting to see you soar and do what you do.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate the show. Thank Kenneth. You're amazing. And thank you for everybody that took some time to come watch.
Yeah, people, thank you so much. Hey, Kevin Short, I love you, man. You are the best, the absolute best. So, Davone, I wanted to ask you: is there anything any encouraging words that you want to leave to our audience, to your fellow artists, to our society. Just leave us with something.
Try to practice empathy every day, you know? Just acknowledge the experience, acknowledge the existence of other people. When you look at somebody, just imagine that they have a whole life going on too.
That's amazing. More empathy in the world, more empathy, everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again to Davone, and please tell Ben and Lisa, thank you so much. They were great in helping to set all of this up. And to Jonathan and Miranda and Silk and the Black Opera team, thank you so much. And we will see you in 2 weeks on May the 3rd with Deshaun Burton in the house. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. God bless and good night.